Whoosh! The dark golden figure sliced through the air, darting toward Mu Chen, Yi Qing, and Tuoba Tsang at an unimaginable speed, leaving a trail of collapsing space in its wake. As the dark golden figure approached with a chilling murderous intent, the three of them changed expressions in unison. Without hesitation, they began retreating at full speed. The figure was far too eerie. Earlier, even Mohyu had been struck down by a single palm from it, a testament to its terrifying combat power. Although they moved as fast as possible, the shadow was even faster. In a flicker of space, the dark golden figure appeared like a ghost right in front of Tuoba Tsang. Its mottled hand, resembling that of a death god, floated toward him with terrifying speed. Realizing there was no time to dodge, Tuoba Tsang could only roar in fury. Endless golden light surged from his back as the immortal golden body emerged, countless immortal divine runes condensing to form a violet gold lotus, enveloping his body in defense. Immortal golden lotus. This was the strongest defensive technique of the immortal golden body. Clearly, Tuoba Tsang didn't dare underestimate the strange dark golden figure. Slap! The dark golden hand struck the immortal golden lotus. For a moment, it seemed to stall, but then, cracks rapidly spread across it, and the violet gold lotus exploded into pieces. Puff! As the lotus shattered, Tuoba Tsang was sent flying backward, blood spraying from him. His expression, usually devoid of emotion, now showed a trace of horror. His full defense, which even Mohyu would struggle to break, was so fragile in the face of this dark golden figure. With a single palm strike, Tuoba Tsang was sent flying. The dark golden figure didn't stop, instead launching straight toward Yi Qing. Azura realm. Yi Qing's eyes flickered as the dark golden figure rushed toward him. He gritted his teeth, shaking his blood-red spear. Instantly, a wave of killing intent soared into the sky as he transformed his spear into a dragon-like weapon, creating a streak of sharp, soaring spear light. It tore through the air, leaving millions of afterimages, and engulfed the dark golden figure in a storm of attacks. Yi Qing's move was also a killing strike. Each of the spear shadows was razor-sharp, and even experts like Mohyu wouldn't dare take them all head-on. Yet the dark golden figure seemed unfazed, allowing the strikes to land. Explosions of fire burst from its body, but it didn't even flinch for a moment. The dark golden figure clenched its fist, sending a burst of dark golden light. The space before it collapsed, and the dark golden fist pierced through the air, smashing into the blood-red spear. Clang! The sound of metal clashing echoed. Yi Qing's body trembled violently, and he staggered backward, his arm cracking as blood poured out. His spear let out a faint cry of distress, as though it had sustained serious damage. At the rear, Mu Chen watched in shock as the dark golden figure defeated Tuoba Tsang and Yi Qing with a single strike. His expression changed as he tensed, feeling the cold, indifferent gaze of the dark golden figure turned toward him. Whoosh! The moment their eyes met, Mu Chen's pupils shrank. The golden light in front of him flickered as the dark golden figure closed the distance in an instant. Its massive hand reached for his throat with an unimaginable speed. A fierce gust of wind tore through the air. Mu Chen's body suddenly jolted, and a pair of magnificent phoenix wings unfolded from his back. With a powerful flap, his speed skyrocketed to an astonishing degree. A remnant image lingered in his place, while his real body appeared 1,000 meters away. Rip! The dark golden hand shredded the afterimage, pausing for a brief moment as if surprised by the missed attack. Mu Chen appeared in the distance, sweat dripping from his forehead. If he had been even a second slower, he would have been seriously injured by that dark golden figure. Thankfully, with the true phoenix wings, his speed was now the fastest of the four. It was the perfect escape tool. The changes in the Eternal Tower happened in the blink of an eye. By the time Mu Chen managed to evade the dark golden figure's attack, countless powerful beings outside the tower had just begun to react, their astonished voices rising in a cacophony. Their expressions were filled with disbelief, clearly unable to fathom what they had just witnessed. Wasn't the eternal undying body supposed to choose a master? Why did it come out and immediately begin a killing spree, seemingly intent on wiping out Mu Chen and his companions? How could this be? Qing Yinjing's expression also changed. How could she not see that the battle power of the dark golden figure was incredibly terrifying? To it, Mu Chen and the others were nothing at all. Mahatian, what is your most ancient clan doing? Qing Yinjing's sharp gaze shot towards the direction where Mahatian was, and she said in a cold voice. Mahatian's face also darkened at this moment. He glanced at Qing Yinjing and replied in a deep voice, I don't know what's going on. In the past, the dark golden figure never appeared during the Eternal Assembly. He was extremely angry now, as he had no idea there would be a dark golden figure in the Eternal Tower. Based on its appearance, he wasn't sure whether it was the legendary Eternal Undying Body. Could this be the way the Eternal Undying Body selects its master? One of the elders of the Mode ancient clan behind him speculated. The dark golden figure's actions are full of murderous intent, with no mercy whatsoever. Even Mahayu is no match for it. This isn't about selecting a master, it's a slaughter, Mahayu said, furrowing his brows. The other elders looked at each other, unsure of what to do. After all, once the Eternal Tower closed, even a Saint-grade Heavenly Supreme couldn't break in. For now, they could only watch as the situation unfolded. While chaos stirred outside the Eternal Tower, inside, Mahayu was repairing his injuries. His face was ashen as he ascended into the air. He gazed at the dark golden figure in the distance, a flicker of trepidation passing through his eyes. If he hadn't reacted quickly earlier, he might have been slain by the dark golden figure in one strike. Damn it, what is this thing? Mahayu was restless. After all his struggles to reach the final level, who would have expected such a monstrous entity to appear? The moment it showed up, it attacked without warning, as if it was intent on wiping them all out. At that moment, the dark golden figure in the distance once again spread its eyes, its entire body surging with dark golden light, seemingly preparing to strike with thunderous fury. Mahayu's eyelids twitched at the sight and he shouted, You three, this thing is incredibly strange. None of us are its match. I suggest we join forces to resist it. Yiqing and Tuobatsong hesitated for a moment but then nodded. Given the previous brief encounter, the battle power displayed by the dark golden figure was indeed terrifying. No one could face it alone. Mu Chen pursed his lips. He felt that even if the four of them joined forces, they might not stand a chance, but right now, there was no other choice. They had no choice but to give it a try. He nodded as well. Whoosh. As they were discussing, the dark golden figure shot forward once again, a streak of golden light piercing through the heavens, coming toward them with terrifying force. Maha Infinite Tribulation. Mahayu's face grew serious. Without hesitation, he unleashed his strongest attack, and once again, the black and white tornado appeared in the air. Eightfold Pagoda. Mu Chen didn't hold back either, immediately activating the Eightfold Pagoda. Heavenly Azura. Deathly Netherdrawl, Yiqing and Tuobatsong also used their most powerful techniques. As the four of them attacked, the heavens and earth grew dim, and four terrifying forces that made even countless heavenly supremes feel a chill surged out. With an unimaginable sharpness, they directly struck at the approaching dark golden figure. Boom, 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 boom. The four terrifying attacks howled as they approached. However, the dark golden figure still showed no signs of evasion. It shot forward unyieldingly, launching 4 punches in succession. The dark golden fist light seemed to contain the immortal light, indestructible and unrelenting. The 4 punches slammed out, as if 4 dark golden suns were sweeping across the sky, finally colliding with the 4 terrifying attacks. Boom, 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 boom. The earth-shattering explosions rang out, and outside the Eternal Tower, countless powerful figures were stunned to see the dark golden suns effortlessly tear apart the full-force attacks from Mu Chen, Mahayu, and the others. Whether it was the black and white tornado or the pagoda death ray, all shattered and collapsed under the impact of the dark golden suns. Outside the Eternal Tower, there was silence. Countless experts were so shaken they couldn't speak. The combined power of Mu Chen, Mahayu, and the others was unimaginable, yet even so, they were crushed by the dark golden figure. The two sides were simply not on the same level. It seemed that only true saints could suppress that dark golden figure. Mu Chen, Mahayu, and the others stared at this scene, their faces extremely grim. Even with their combined efforts, they had not achieved any effect. This only showed how terrifying the dark golden figure was. To hell with it. Mahayu couldn't help but curse rudely, his eyes darkened. The 4 of them joined forces, yet they couldn't stop the dark golden figure. How were they supposed to fight now? Mu Chen also furrowed his brows. The dark golden figure was too strong. There was simply no way to resist it. Could it be that they had to defeat this dark golden figure to gain the recognition of the eternal undying body? But unless a sync-grade expert stepped in, none of them had a chance. Roar. As his thoughts swirled, the dark golden figure suddenly let out a roar to the sky. It raised its palms and fiercely grabbed at the void, immediately tearing the space apart. In the torn void, countless points of light resembling violet gold could be vaguely seen. The dark golden figure opened its mouth, and a powerful suction force erupted. It tried to draw out those violet gold light points. Though the points seemed to resist, they were eventually forcefully sucked out and swallowed by the figure. Mu Chen's eyes narrowed as he watched the violet gold light points. He recognized a familiar fluctuation from them. It was the immortal origin. These immortal origins must have gathered within the eternal tower, but why would the dark golden figure consume them in such a forceful manner? A trace of doubt flashed across Mu Chen's mind. From a certain perspective, if this dark golden figure was the legendary eternal undying body, then the eternal tower should be fully devoted to supplying all the immortal origins to it, not resisting like this. Or perhaps, what they were seeing wasn't truly the eternal undying body. But if it's not the eternal undying body, then what is it? Mu Chen vaguely sensed an incredibly intense immortal aura emanating from the dark golden figure. It felt powerful, but also somewhat fragmented and disordered. While Mu Chen was lost in thought, the dark golden figure's body grew even darker after consuming the violet gold light points. The oppressive force emanating from it also intensified. It slowly lifted its head, its dark golden eyes locking onto Mu Chen and his companions. In that moment, a look of greed seemed to appear in its gaze, and a vague, disembodied thought spread out. I will consume you. Boom. The earth shook as violent spiritual energy waves erupted. The five figures collided in an unrelenting dance of battle. With each clash, the very heavens seemed to tremble, as if the sky itself would be torn apart. However, calling it a battle was inaccurate. The four figures in the front were basically running for their lives, desperately dodging, while the dark golden figure pursued with unstoppable force, tearing through every attack as if they were nothing. These four figures were, of course, Mu Chen, Mo Yu, Yu Qing, and Tuobat's Song. They had been entangled with the mysterious dark golden figure for over a stick of incense now. During this time, they had learned what it felt like to be as helpless as a cornered dog. Against the dark golden figure's relentless pursuit, the only thing they could do was scatter and flee. Mo Yu, enraged at being chased, had tried to make a stand with all his might, but the result was his arm being torn off by the dark golden figure. After that, Mu Chen and the others had abandoned any hope of fighting head-on. Their only choice was to flee, but fortunately, the dark golden figure seemed to pause after a short pursuit, tearing apart the void to steal immortal origins from the eternal tower, giving them a brief respite. But they all knew this wouldn't last long. With each time the dark golden figure stole immortal origins from the eternal tower, the aura emanating from it grew more terrifying. Clearly, the dark golden figure was continuing to grow stronger. Mu Chen and the others wore bitter expressions. Although they could leave the eternal tower at this moment, they all knew that once they did, they would lose their chance to compete for the eternal undying body. No one wanted to be the first to leave. Roar. As their minds were in turmoil, the dark golden figure once again swept through the void, extracting more immortal origins. Its dark golden aura deepened, and the oppressive force around it shattered the very space, like glass breaking apart. It let out a low howl, confusion flashing in its dark golden pupils. Its emotionless voice echoed across the heavens and earth once more. Stay and merge with this world. Hearing the deep murderous intent in its voice, Mo Yu and the others pretended not to hear it and quickly fled. Mu Chen's heart stirred slightly. Over the past period, every time the dark golden figure had absorbed the immortal origin, it emitted the same low growl. That growl seemed to be directed at them, yet for some reason, Mu Chen keenly sensed that it wasn't a sound the dark golden figure intended to make. He could feel a faint resistance within it. Fusing with this world, does this world refer to the eternal tower? Mu Chen's eyes flickered as he muttered to himself. Boom. Just as Mu Chen's thoughts settled, a sudden explosion of air came from behind him. He turned around, his heart sinking in shock, for even he could only see a dark golden streak of light streaking across the sky. It's moving faster. Mu Chen's phoenix wings suddenly flared, stirring a fierce wind. His figure vanished in an instant as he pushed his speed to its limit. Just as Mu Chen disappeared, a dark golden hand shot from the afterimage he left behind, piercing through his chest. The terrifying spiritual energy shockwave shattered the afterimage. With a missed strike, the dark golden figure growled in frustration and flashed again. But this time, it didn't pursue Mu Chen. Instead, it appeared behind Tuoba Song, who was the slowest among the four. Immortal Golden Lotus. Sensing the dark golden figure's approach, Tuoba Song's expression changed drastically. Countless immortal divine runes howled as they transformed into a massive lotus to protect him. SSS. However, this time, the immortal golden lotus didn't manage to block the dark golden figure's attack. The dark golden hand seemed to contain indescribable power, and with a simple thrust, it tore through the immortal golden lotus. Boom. The immortal golden lotus exploded. Just as Tuoba Song was about to retreat, a dark golden hand emerged from the void and pressed onto his heavenly spirit cap. Fear flickered into Tuoba Song's eyes as he immediately shouted, "I withdraw." According to the rules of the Eternal Tower, as long as a participant voluntarily withdraws, they will be immediately expelled. Tuoba Song was initially reluctant, but at this moment, he had no choice but to prioritize his life. After shouting the words to withdraw, Tuoba Song relaxed his body slightly, waiting for the space distortion to expel him. But just then, he seemed to see a sinister smile at the corner of the dark golden figure's mouth. The expected space distortion didn't occur. A cold chill suddenly surged from Tuoba Song's feet straight to his heavenly spirit cap. In the next moment, he was about to desperately unleash the spiritual energy in his body. Crack. However, as his spiritual energy began to stir, an indescribable violent spiritual force surged into his body, its power so immense that it almost instantly shattered his head. Boom boom. Two muffled explosions sounded, and Tuoba Song's body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. The immortal golden body behind him emitted a mournful wail before exploding into a shower of purple gold light. The dark golden figure took a deep breath, swallowing all the purple gold light particles into its mouth. The sudden change stunned Mu Chen, Mo Hu, and Yu Qing. A look of shock crossed their faces, because they could clearly sense that Tuoba Song had been completely obliterated. Why didn't he withdraw from the Eternal Tower? Yu Qing's face was dark with anger. He clearly heard Tuoba Song shout to withdraw, yet the Eternal Tower seemed to have not expelled him. Mo Yu's face was dark and uncertain. He glanced at the dark golden figure, his eyes filled with wariness and a hint of fear. The Eternal Tower seems to be malfunctioning, Mu Chen said in a low voice. When the dark golden figure emerged, the situation seemed to spiral out of control. Perhaps because of its interference, the Eternal Tower could no longer expel anyone trapped inside. Hearing this, Mo Yu and Yu Qing's pupil shrank sharply. If they really couldn't leave the Eternal Tower, that meant they were trapped here too. At the thought of this, their expressions darkened further. Meanwhile, outside the Eternal Tower, chaos erupted. Countless powerful figures stared in disbelief at the scene of Tuoba Song being erased. A chill spread from the bottom of their hearts. That was a top-tier expert at the late immortal grade. How could he be obliterated right before their eyes? Qing Yanjing watched the scene with a slight change in her expression. She had noticed that Tuoba Song's withdrawal had failed. Her sharp gaze immediately turned toward Mo Hu, her voice low as she asked, "Is the Eternal Tower malfunctioning?" Mo Tian nodded slightly, his expression also grim. "Don't blame me. The Mo ancient clan can't control the Eternal Tower, so if there's a problem, I can't fix it." Qing Yanjing tightly gripped the jade in her hand, a trace of murderous intent flickering in her eyes. The dark golden figure was bizarrely powerful, and Mu Chen was clearly no match for it. If things continued like this, he would undoubtedly face a dire end. "Then let's destroy the Eternal Tower," Qing Yanjing said coldly. "No." Mo Tian immediately objected. "What if we destroy the Eternal Tower? The eternal undying body inside would be affected as well. Who will take responsibility for that? If the eternal undying body could be destroyed so easily, then it wouldn't be the primordial law body anymore." Qing Yanjing sneered. "That's not possible. My Mo ancient clan has guarded it for tens of thousands of years. We must ensure its safety." Mo Tian stood his ground, speaking coldly. "Then I will take it by force." "Humph, this is my Mo ancient clan, not your Futu ancient clan. Then let's try it." The two saint-grade experts faced off, their terrifying auras subtly leaking out, causing the surrounding heavens and earth to darken. Countless strong individuals fell silent, for if these two immortals fought, the entire area within 1,000,000 miles would likely be reduced to ruins. Inside the tower, after the dark golden figure devoured Tuoba Song's immortal golden body, the golden light in its eyes grew even more intense. Then, its greedy gaze turned toward Mu Chen, Mo Hu, and Yi Qing. Boom. Its body trembled, turning into a burst of golden light as it shot straight toward Mohyu, who had the strongest aura, clearly knowing that the latter's immortal golden body would bring it greater benefits. Seeing this, Mohyu's face changed, and he quickly retreated. However, at that moment, the dark golden figure's speed skyrocketed. No matter how Mohyu tried to flee, the distance between them grew smaller and smaller. After just a few breaths, Mohyu could already feel the fierce wind behind him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the dark golden figure closing in. Mohyu's gaze suddenly shifted to the distant Mu Chen on the right. A cold glint passed through his eyes, and then he revealed an 8-pointed compass in his hand, covered with mysterious runes. 8-star spirit compass, position swap art. The compass emitted a strange light, enveloping the dark golden figure ahead. As soon as Mohyu took out the compass, Mu Chen sensed danger and instinctively felt uneasy. He immediately retreated, trying to distance himself. Swish! But just as he was about to retreat, the dark golden figure, which had been chasing Mohyu, suddenly vanished in a strange manner. Then, Mu Chen's pupils shrank as he saw the space in front of him crack open, and a dark golden figure rushed out, its emotionless dark golden eyes fixated on him. Looking at the figure so close in front of him, Mu Chen's face darkened. Mohyu, that bastard, dared to trick him. The space in front of him shattered, and the dark golden figure emerged from it. Mu Chen's gaze met the emotionless dark golden pupils for a brief moment, and his handsome face grew even darker. Though he had been prepared, Mohyu's move had clearly caught him off guard. This guy actually managed to swap the position of the dark golden figure to in front of him. This way, Mohyu had escaped the dark golden figure's pursuit, but had sent Mu Chen right into its grasp. A myriad of emotions flashed through his mind, but in the blink of an eye, Mu Chen's wings flared open behind him, and his figure blurred as he rapidly retreated, leaving behind only afterimages. Swish! The dark golden figure locked onto the closest target, Mu Chen, transforming into a streak of dark golden light, shredding through the afterimages as it closed in swiftly. Mu Chen pushed his speed to the limit, changing his position multiple times, but still couldn't shake off the dark golden figure, which was now moving at an even faster pace. His expression darkened further. From a distance, Mohyu coldly watched as Mu Chen was relentlessly pursued by the dark golden figure, a cold smile curling at the corner of his mouth. Swish! In the vast expanse, Mu Chen turned into a streak of light, speeding away. Though the pressure from behind grew stronger, his expression became increasingly calm. His eyes flickered slightly, occasionally sweeping over the ancient world around him, his gaze deep in thought. Based on the speed of the dark golden figure, it was likely that within a dozen breaths, he would be caught. And with that terrifying strength, no matter what means he used, he would be unable to resist. Because his strongest defensive technique is the Immortal Golden Lotus, in terms of defensive power, it wouldn't be much stronger than Tuobatsang's Immortal Golden Lotus. However, the latter had been annihilated by the strange, torn Immortal Golden Lotus. If it were him in this situation, the outcome would likely be the same. In such a predicament, where escape is impossible and fighting is futile, he had already walked into a dead end. If it were an ordinary person, they would probably be panicked by now, but Mu Chen's years of experience had tempered his will. He understood that in times like this, panic only further diminishes any chance of survival. What should I do? Mu Chen's blood was rushing at high speed through his body, and after a brief pause, he stared at the surrounding world, a flash of madness crossing his eyes. Roar! A low growl came from behind, and a terrifying pressure enveloped him, causing his body to tremble. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the dark golden figure right behind him, its hand, gleaming with dark golden light, grabbing towards him. At this moment, there was nowhere left to run. In the distance, Mahayu watched the scene unfold, a chilling expression flickering in his eyes. Let's see how you manage to escape this time. The aura of death drew near. Mu Chen suddenly formed hand seals, and the massive immortal golden body appeared behind him. Seeing this, the greed in the dark golden figure's eyes intensified. Mu Chen no longer tried to flee. Instead, he turned to face the dark golden figure with cold, pitch-black eyes. In the next moment, he suddenly formed another hand seal, and a deep voice slowly emanated from his mouth. Explosion. The moment his words fell, numerous cracks appeared on the immortal golden body behind him. Then, within the body, a brilliant purple-gold sun erupted, sending millions of rays of light in every direction. Boom! A thunderous sound reverberated, and the purple-gold light seemed to fill the entire world. An indescribable destructive shockwave swept across, obliterating everything in its path. Even the dark golden figure charging toward Chen was sent flying tens of thousands of feet, letting out a painful roar. Self-destructing the immortal golden body. Yiqing's expression shifted, unable to hide his surprise. He hadn't expected Chen to be so decisive and ruthless, willing to self-destruct his immortal golden body. This was a true self-detonation of his immortal origin, meaning Chen would never be able to cultivate the immortal golden body again unless he started over. This guy, Mahayu, was also somewhat surprised by Chen's resolution. His eyes narrowed. He had originally thought Chen was doomed, but now, the latter had escaped through the self-detonation of his immortal golden body. But then he quickly dismissed the thought. Even if Chen had survived, the self-detonation would have severely injured him, and he was no longer a threat. Next, once Yiqing was dealt with, he would take action. A cold smile curled at the corners of his mouth as he clenched his hand in his sleeve, and an ancient talisman appeared in his grasp, releasing a faintly terrifying aura. The Mo-ancient clan had long been prepared for the eternal undying body. Although the situation before him had deviated from his control, it was not without countermeasures. Of course, before all this, he had to eliminate the others. Xun'er. Outside the Eternal Tower, when Qing Yanjing saw Chen self-destruct his immortal golden body, her face instantly turned pale. In the next moment, a terrifying spiritual energy storm erupted from her body, shaking the very heavens and earth. Her cheeks icy cold, her eyes radiating enough chill to freeze space itself. She moved, transforming into a beam of light heading straight for the Eternal Tower. Qing Yanjing, you are being reckless. Maha Tian shouted angrily upon seeing this, his figure appearing outside the Eternal Tower in an instant. A terrifying spiritual energy storm raged, and the power of Saint Grade enveloped the surroundings. Get out of my way. Qing Yanjing's eyes were filled with murderous intent. With a sudden movement of her jade hand, she formed seals, and a massive spirit array descended from the sky, as if a world itself were crashing down, directly enveloping Mahatian. It was a magma world, where the lava turned white, and the terrifying heat was enough to disintegrate even an immortal grade heavenly supreme. The magma dragons roared, wildly charging out in waves, rushing towards Mahatian, who floated in midair. Tian's eyes darkened upon seeing the situation. With a flick of his sleeve, black and white chi surged out from his robe, surrounding him. Every time a magma dragon charged toward him, it was shattered by the force of the black and white chi. Qing Yanjing, have you lost your mind? Do you really want to start a war with my Mo-ancient clan here? Tian's voice was cold. Do you think I would just let this go after what happened to Yu? Qing Yanjing's voice echoed fiercely across the world. Tian snorted coldly. The Eternal Tower is a place where one relies on their own strength. It's no one's fault that Chen was careless. You shouldn't act like this. It's beneath the dignity of the Futu ancient clan. Utter nonsense, Qing Yanjing sneered coldly. She then summoned tens of thousands of magma dragons, which roared, glaring at Tian. Tian's eyes darkened slightly, his voice low as he spoke. Do you really think this is the time for a fight? Your son merely self-destructed his immortal golden body. He's not dead. Once Yu deals with the dark golden figure, your son will be fine. But if Yu can't handle it, your son will die, and neither of us will be able to save him. Upon hearing this, Qing Yanjing froze for a moment. Her eyes shifted rapidly, then turned cold. With a wave of her hand, the entire magma world disappeared into thin air. If anything happens to my son, even if I have to fight your Mo-ancient clan, I will do so without hesitation. Qing Yanjing's voice was ice cold, and with that, her figure disappeared, returning to her original position. Tian watched Qing Yanjing's retreating figure. A cold glint flashed in his eyes before he also returned to the high platform. As the two Saint-grade experts stood down, the countless powerful figures outside the eternal tower finally breathed a sigh of relief, wiping the cold sweat from their foreheads. The sudden confrontation had clearly frightened them. Qing Yinjing is going too far, one of the Mo ancient clan's elders couldn't help but mutter. Imohition lowered his eyes and spoke coldly, forget about her for now. The most important thing is to obtain the eternal undying body. Once we have it, then we'll deal with her. A storm raged across the ancient heavens and earth, lasting for a long time before slowly dissipating. At this moment, the entire land was in ruins, with deep cracks and chasms thousands of feet deep crisscrossing the terrain, an eye-watering sight. In mid-air, Mu Qin's figure had already vanished, but neither Mohiyu nor Yi Qing had the heart to pay attention to him, for they saw the dark golden figure charging toward them once more. Earlier, Mu Qin's self-detonation of his immortal golden body had caused his immortal origin to scatter, and the dark golden figure had not obtained anything. Now, it was angrily charging toward Mohiyu and Yi Qing. Seeing this, the two of them did not hesitate for a moment and turned to flee. Once again, the heavens and earth became a battlefield of life and death. Amidst the roaring winds, Mu Qin lay in a deep chasm, his body drenched in blood. His face was ashen, and his spiritual energy was in disarray, clearly heavily injured. The self-detonation of the immortal golden body was something he had never encountered before in all his years. The destruction of the immortal origin meant that he could no longer refine another immortal golden body. Years of hard cultivation had been destroyed in an instant. Even Mu Qin, with a strong will, couldn't help but feel a pang of pain in his heart. But he knew that this was not the time for such feelings. The crisis was far from over, and he had to think of a way to break the deadlock. With a deep breath, Mu Qin's chest heaved as he let out a long exhale. The pain radiating through his body made his brow furrow, but he did not pay much attention to it. His gaze shifted through the chasm, looking at the ancient heavens and earth, and slowly, his eyes closed. Now, it was time to test his previous hypothesis. If his guess was correct, then this self-detonation of the immortal golden body would not be in vain. As Mu Qin's eyes closed, his perception began to silently spread. He was sensing the immortal origins scattered throughout the heavens and earth due to the self-detonation of his immortal golden body. Since these immortal origins were something he had cultivated, even though he couldn't control them after the detonation, Mu Qin could still clearly sense their presence and locations. They scattered through the heavens and earth like countless points of light. They're here. Mu Qin quietly sensed the immortal origins, and suddenly, a flicker of realization struck him. He felt the space where the immortal origins had scattered begin to emit faint ripples, slowly drawing the light points in one by one. In just a few dozen breaths of time, the immortal origin scattered by Mu Qin's self-detonation disappeared completely, as if it had never existed. However, Mu Qin knew that his immortal origin hadn't vanished into thin air. It had been absorbed by the eternal tower. And this was exactly as he had expected. He focused his mind, sensing the immortal origin that clung to him. As the immortal origin merged with the world, the surrounding environment began to change drastically. The original world vanished, replaced by a realm bathed in purple gold light. In this world, countless specks of purple gold light floated around, causing Mu Qin's heart to tremble. These purple gold lights were all immortal origin. Compared to the immortal origin he had gathered from his previous opponents, these were like the vast ocean compared to a small stream. Such immense immortal origin, this must have accumulated in the eternal tower over tens of thousands of years, right? Mu Qin marveled, gazing at the purple gold world. If he could absorb and refine this immortal origin, his immortal golden body would undoubtedly become terrifyingly powerful. Whoosh, whoosh. While Mu Qin was lost in his thoughts, a sudden disturbance rippled through the purple gold world. The sensation attached to the immortal origin he was sensing trembled sharply, as if a scanning wave had passed through his perception. That skin carried an ancient feeling. Has it been discovered? Mu Qin's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't dare make any sudden movements. As he remained still, purple gold light suddenly gathered in front of him, forming a vague shadow. After all these years, someone has finally arrived. The shadow, though indistinct, carried an ancient voice that seemed to be directed at Mu Qin. Seeing this, Mu Qin's concealed consciousness emitted a faint glow, gradually coalescing into a light shadow as well. He cautiously observed the hazy figure and cupped his fists, saying, "I accidentally trespassed. I hope Senior does not mind. May I ask, who might you be?" The vague shadow seemed to smile faintly and said, "I am the consciousness of the eternal tower." "It seems you're quite clever, little one, to have figured out this method of entry. Though, your courage is not small. Chen naturally understood that the courage referred to his self-detonation of the immortal golden body. After all, few people would have the guts to destroy such a precious body they had painstakingly cultivated for years. There was no other choice when my life was at stake, Chen said with a bitter smile. Then his mind stirred, and he added, "But I must thank Xun'er for the reminder. That mutated entity is too vile for me to deal with. I could only create some confusion while it was plundering the immortal origin and give you a small hint," the shadow sighed. Indeed. Chen secretly let out a sigh of relief. His earlier feeling had been correct. Every time that dark golden figure had plundered the immortal origin, it would emit strange low growls, but those weren't its own doing. The shadow before him had made some adjustments. "Xun'er, what exactly is going on? What is that dark golden figure?" Chen asked in confusion. The vague shadow rippled slightly, and before it appeared a glowing scroll, which slowly unfurled. Chen focused and saw a man in green robes depicted on the scroll. He couldn't clearly make out the man's face, but from the back, a sense of mystery and oppressive force he had never felt before emanated from him. The man in green robes descended from the sky, landing on the ground, and then personally constructed an ancient stone tower. Chen instantly recognized the tower. It was the Eternal Tower. His heart jolted, and he understood. The man in green robes depicted in the scroll was none other than the legendary Immortal Emperor, the first supreme being of antiquity. Back then, the Immortal Emperor built the Eternal Tower here, placing the dormant eternal undying body within. He also spread the cultivation methods for the immortal golden body throughout the Great Thousand Worlds. The purpose was twofold. 1. To find a suitable master for the eternal undying body, and 2. To gather enough immortal origin to repair the dormant eternal undying body, the ancient voice continued. Repair. Chen's gaze flickered. Yes, the Immortal Emperor fought the heavenly evil god of the extraterritorial evil clan in a great battle. The eternal undying body was severely wounded and fell into a dormant state. That's why it was left here, to be repaired using immortal origin. I see. Chen nodded slightly, then whispered, "But what about that figure? It doesn't seem to be the eternal undying body, does it? How could it be the eternal undying body?" The ancient shadow seemed to laugh disdainfully, then sighed. Over the tens of thousands of years, many powerful individuals who cultivated the immortal golden body have entered the Eternal Tower. Their arrival provided immense immortal origin, which accelerated the repair of the eternal undying body. But what I didn't expect was the emergence of some anomalies. Anomalies. Yes, the immortal origin gathered in the Eternal Tower is simply too immense, and it comes from different immortal golden bodies. Though I have purified it, some remnants were inevitably overlooked. Without my noticing, a fragmentary consciousness had hidden itself within the immense immortal origin, secretly devouring other immortal origins. By the time I detected its presence, it had become extremely powerful. I had to use all my strength to suppress it. However, it had devoured too much immortal origin, causing the eternal undying body, which should have awakened, to remain in a dormant state. It's truly infuriating. Chen's heart stirred slightly as the dark golden figure appeared, clearly leaping out from a crimson mountain. Upon closer inspection, it turned out that it had been suppressed beneath the mountain all along. It turns out that the dark golden figure is actually formed from the pure immortal origin. Chen suddenly realized in his heart, no wonder the figure exuded such a strong aura of immortality. You all cultivate the immortal golden body, which contains the immortal origin. That's why it harbors such intense murderous intent towards you. This being has become the greatest malignant tumor. If it is not eradicated, it will continue to devour more immortal origin, and eventually, it could even consume the eternal undying body. At that point, it might create a monster with a confused consciousness. I've been desperate about this for a long time, but due to the rules, I cannot contact you directly. I could only secretly remind you, to see if you can comprehend and come here in another way. Upon hearing this, Chen's pupils immediately contracted. All his years of hard cultivation had been for the eternal undying body. If this mutated being got its hands on it, he would have no place to cry. Is there anything I can do? Chen murmured. His goal was the eternal undying body, and the most important thing right now was to stop that mutated being. But that mutated being was simply too powerful. He was no match for it. The earlier encounter had forced him to self-destruct his immortal golden body. If it happened again, he might lose his life. That mutated being has already become a formidable force. Unless a Saint-grade expert appears among you, it's difficult to subdue it, the ancient figure said slowly. Mu Chen nodded slightly, furrowing his brows. Then, is there any other way? There is. The ancient figure's presence fluctuated, revealing some excitement. What is it? The ancient figure spoke slowly, word by word, awakened the dormant eternal undying body. Mu Chen's heart shook. Then, an immense heat surged from the depths of his being. He restrained his excitement and asked, "Can I try?" The ancient figure seemed to smile, saying, "Of course. The fact that you've arrived here proves your courage and determination. It's the qualification you deserve." As the words fell, the ancient figure seemed to wave his hand. Mu Chen then felt the purple light below the violet gold world begin to dissipate. Looking down, he saw, at the deepest part of the violet gold world, a mysterious glazed light flickering in and out of sight. Mu Chen stared fixedly at the glazed light, imprinting the scene in his mind. Within the glazed light, there seemed to be a figure sitting cross-legged. This body was entirely made of glazed material, with ancient runes etched on every inch of its skin. These runes emitted a primordial fluctuation, as if they had been formed since the world's creation, mysterious and unfathomable. The aura of immortality enveloped it, giving a sense of eternity, as though it could never be erased, capable of withstanding the erosion of time. It was only about a meter tall, yet it was so ancient and powerful. Even in its dormant state, it still radiated an indescribable pressure, one stronger than even the might of saint-grade experts. Mu Chen gazed at the ancient glazed body with boundless longing and burning desire, his pitch-black eyes revealing it. In this moment, even his calm nature couldn't stop his body from trembling. The eternal undying body. "I've finally seen you."